right, welcome back to the Crypto Power Hour, the number one crypto show on Rumble, of course, powered by our friends over at Solum Global with your hosts, Lance Miliaccio and George Ballantine. We're the Crypto Bros, and of course, this is your ultimate deep dive into everything crypto, blockchain, and decentralized finance. I don't care whether you're a seasoned investor or a newbie just stepping into the world of digital assets for the very first time. We're going to bring you expert insights, top interviews, exciting new projects, breaking news, and game-changing innovations shaping the future of digital finance. Because on this show, in crypto, we trust. George B., what's going on, man? How are you? It's early. It's rise and grind, baby, like we always do, 7 a.m. Wednesday morning. So what's happening, brother?
Well, it's Wednesday morning, but, you know, it's hump day or hump week for us single guys out there. That's what I like to say it. You know, another day, another dollar, but that dollar's not feeling like a dollar. It's feeling like more like 10 cents the way things are going.
Yeah, you know, we still got inflation. I know the administration is telling us otherwise, but it sure doesn't feel like the dollar goes very far anymore. We're going to be talking about that on today's show. And of course, I got a great interview for you. Evgeny Mitkov joins us again. We got lots to cover, lots of information, a couple of breaking stories. And of course, the Crypto Power Hour. Take the live link, share it far and wide. And don't forget, hit that follow button. We're getting crazy amounts of views. Those follows matter. It helps us with the search engines at Rumble. Of course, right now we're the number one crypto show on Rumble, but get in the comments, get in the chat, hit us with some replies. And of course, if you'd love to sponsor the Crypto Power Hour, info@thebigmig.com. We're always looking for a couple of like-minded sponsors with good products and good offering for our, our listeners and subscribers. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Hit the Crypto Power Hour, G. Ballantine, Lance Miliaccio, and of course, the Big Mig Show. That's all on X. And don't forget our friends over at Solum Global. If you haven't checked out their website, big moves happening over there. Solum.global. Check them out. A lot of news going to be coming up. Kirk's going to be joining us next Tuesday, the founder of Solum Global. So we're excited about that interview. And huge interview over on the Big Mig Show. Anybody that is familiar with the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, the author of that book will be joining us on Thursday on the Big Mig Show. So if you don't know Griffin, you should definitely check it out. He doesn't do very many interviews, and it's maybe one of your last chances. He's an older guy. He's in his 90s. So I would recommend, if you ever read the book or familiar with the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, that's all about the Federal Reserve Bank, you do not want to miss that interview. This guy is hyper bright. He's already writing another book. Unbelievable energy. My hat's off to him. But of course, he's one of the fierce people that ever outed the Federal Reserve for the corrupt institution it is. We might even touch on this on the show during the day. All right, Evgeny's backstage. There's no reason to leave him back there. Let's drag him in here. And then, of course, I still need to do the quick shout out for one of our sponsors. We'll get him in here first.
All right, welcome to the Crypto Power Hour. Evgeny, how you doing?
Great to see you guys. Great to be back in this great show.
Yeah, we're excited you're here, Evgeny, of course. As always, a lot to cover today. I'm going to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors. Of course, George and I love our crypto, but we also love our gold and silver. This is the Prepper Bar, 62.2 gram Prepper Bar, perforated and very easily broken down into your choice of 3 separate denominations. You can see there a small, a medium, and large. You can just break off a small piece to make a payment. It doesn't matter whether this is for asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, diversification, or in the case of the Prepper Bar, it's very unique utility for barter and trade. Because look, you're not going to carry around a pair of tin snips and start chopping off pieces of a 1 ounce gold or silver token. That's what you'd have to do if you have to make a partial payment. Not with the Prepper Bar. Grab a few, stick them in your sock drawer, your underwear drawer, your safety deposit box, maybe even your gun safe, wherever you can get to them in case you need them, in case maybe at $40 trillion in debt, the US dollar completely tanks. I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think the government thinks it's sustainable. But of course, I haven't heard a solution yet. The Prepper Bar, head over to thebigmigbar.com, thebigmigbar.com. Use that QR code. George makes it easy. It'll take you there directly. Or you can give them a call at 888-526-7154, 888-526-7154. Don't forget to tell them the Big Mig Show sent you. Thebigmigbar.com.
Break me off a piece of that Prepper Bar.
Yeah.
All right. we got a lot to cover today, but before we kick it off, George, I just want to talk about something you brought up on the show more than once. You wanted to get your hands on a quantum computer for quite some time. You keep talking about breaking into Satoshi Nakamoto's wallet. I don't blame you. I'd like you to break into it too. But that reality is becoming more and more possible. Google just released a new quantum algorithm that they say was developed not necessarily to hack into crypto private keys, but in fact, it's usable for that. It's 13,000 times faster than before. And they allege that assuming quantum computing was available, because of course we know full quantum systems aren't quite online yet, but they're imminent. Who knows? Maybe the government's already got them and they haven't told us. But allegedly, once those systems are full online, they're saying you can hack into any crypto wallet in 9 minutes or less with a 41% success rate. It's not looking too good for Bitcoin. And sure heck, it doesn't matter really what chain you're on. George, comments first, because I know you've been talking about this for months.
They stole my idea, the bastards, freaking Google. Listen, you say they have an algorithm. Okay, fine, but it's an algorithm. They still need the systems to operate it and probably still build something to actually break into the wallets. I mean, it's not we'll see. But look, they're going to have to, before they release quantum computing out to generally anybody, they're going to have to come up with systems for the crypto wallets, the exchanges. They're going to have to, introduce this in order to protect them from this. So it's just like anything else. There's always going to be something better and faster coming out. So, I mean, the only thing I can tell you is if you got a lot of money in your wallets, take them offline. Cold storage, people, cold storage. Take them out. Yeah.
And for everybody in the audience, it's not just the crypto wallets, of course, the banking system, the financial system, the levels of encryption that everything's on now. We used to think that 3 DES 128-bit was a big deal. It does not appear to be the case any longer. Evgeny, what do you think? Are we in trouble here? And how soon are we in trouble? What do you think?
We already are in trouble. What the Google paper doesn't mention is that it conveniently is skipping the state actors in their discussion. State actors can already do that. What they're talking about is commercially you'll be able to do it in 2029, 3 years from now. But I think state actors can potentially already do it. And of course, the bigger challenge is it's not just the wallets. Everything is, because if you can crack the encryption, you can go and print and mint some Bitcoins for yourself, potentially. You can expand. Yeah, no, you can do anything with the blockchain. Now, obviously, there's an easy solution to that. You just upgrade the blockchain and put a better encryption on it, which if we can invent quantum computing, we can invent better encryption too. The challenge really stands in 4 corners. First, Satoshi Nakamoto owns 1.2 million Bitcoin that hasn't really moved in 16 years. Then you have the US, China, and Iran owning Bitcoin. So you're going to have to get all these actors to agree to a new code that gets deployed for the blockchain. And that's probably the biggest challenge for Bitcoin. Not so much the technology is out there. You can create a new cryptography and basically upgrade. So as a problem, it's less of a problem for Ethereum and all the other blockchains that have really good community that are continuing evolving the blockchain and improving it. They'll roll out a new version and it'll be a hard fork and they'll move everything from the old blockchain onto the new one. How do you do that with Bitcoin, where people are very much stuck in a lot of very contentious conversations? And as I said,
Bitcoin is the problem. Of course, a lot of people have talked about the antiquated chain
that
Bitcoin's original systems are built on, and upgrading that system, as you said, is more than complicated. There are a lot of questions And I wouldn't doubt that if any group, state actor wise, was ahead of the curve, it would probably be the Lazarus Group out of North Korea. They seem to be the innovators when it comes to what I would consider the top level of computing and hacking. Over and over again, they're successful. And of course, North Korea, it's really one of their probably highest adders to their GDP is their hacking. They've made an awful lot of money over the last decade, and they've reinvested that into very sophisticated, hacking systems, including their back-end structure. I understand that they've got access to NVIDIA processors that they've bought out on the black market. So yeah, but you're right. Bitcoin is the real question. Will they even be capable of upgrading that system? A lot of people argue that it's something that may not be doable.
No, it's doable. Technologically, it's very much doable. It's about consensus. How do you build consensus for hard fork, which is what is required here?
Mm-hmm.
And you basically gonna have to get on the same table Iran, China, and US to agree to that hard fork.
Yeah. Sometimes you always wonder what the political agenda. When you look at the kinetic event in Iran, of course, some people argue that there were a lot of different reasons for it. There's a lot of discussions about the mining that Iran's doing, 1,300 and change of Bitcoin. They're liquidating it immediately. There was some information I heard that when Trump was going to strike the power, when he talked about hitting the power grid infrastructure in Iran, and of course, Iran immediately came out and made targets public in all their close proximity nations, desalinization plants in UAE and other structures, power grids. Some of the people argued that it wasn't only that the people in the Bitcoin community had come to him and gotten very concerned because, of course, those Bitcoin are getting sold on the open market every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was some information I gotten a hold of that they said that he also got a lot of pressure from people in the Bitcoin community. They didn't want him to do that. What are your thoughts on that? You think there's any truth to that story?
There could be. There's a lot of Bitcoins floating around Iran, but there's also a lot of USDC and USDT. You better believe it, but 20% of oil traded in Asia is now trading in stable tokens.
I want to get back to the quantum computing part because we're talking about securing wallets and stuff. But if everything is switched to biometrics, whether it be face scan, finger scans, can the quantum get past that?
Of course they can, because again, it's not so much what the source of the key is; it's whether you can break the key. And again, a quantum computer is super fast, so you need to create a different level of complication of the key itself in order to pose a challenge to the quantum computer.
What about if you don't use a key and just use biometrics?
But again, the quantum computer will be able to recreate whatever data the biometrics create.
Because George, the biometrics.
No, I got it. I wanted to hear for the listeners.
Into a mathematical equation.
Yeah, it's still going to be. Yeah, it's going to be some combination of zeros and ones that the face, retina scan, or the fingerprints create. Still, those combinations of zeros and ones will be able to be replicated by the quantum computer. The question is, creating an obfuscation layer that's so complex that even the quantum computer will take 5 light years to break down. And then when you have a decentralized system with information being split between 50 million computers, then it's easy to stop a quantum computer because you're going to need to hack 50 million computers in the same nanosecond. That's not difficult, right? So ultimately, it's about just really coding up a new key security system that is meant for quantum computing.
And just for the audience, we kind of jumped right in, guys. That was my doing. Vinny's got 29 years in the of revolutionizing the FX capital markets and blockchain payments. He's accumulated with the founding of 7C's Capital Management, digital asset market making fund. Of course, Evgeny's at the top forefront of tokenizing real world assets, making FX trading on the stable token rail. Of course, launching a yield stable token For 11 years, he brought this capital markets knowledge and focus on user-friendly financial solutions to develop various blockchain projects. So just to give you a quick background, there's lots more here. It goes on and on and on. But I just wanted you guys to understand that he's an expert in a lot of different areas. So we thought we'd bring him on because everybody's worried about inflation. I mean, we hear it constantly. George mentioned earlier today, of course, even the minute the war kicked off, gas prices went up. Of course, that was bullshit. Because why would it go up at the pumps? Only 2 to 3% of the U.S. gas supply or oil supply comes from the Middle East. Of course, every time there's an opportunity, people inflate prices. The same thing with the food markets. We saw, Joe Biden make a lot of decisions that had to do with chickens, as an example, and egg farming. That's why eggs went through the roof. They were getting ridiculously expensive. Eggs are down, but in my opinion, everything else is up. Interest rates, the Federal Reserve, a private institution, continues to manipulate our currency to the detriment, in my opinion, of the country. We're paying interest. We're paying a private institution to print our money. They're charging us face value. They're gouging us. Let's talk about current inflation before we even go, because I want to talk about current inflation, the crypto markets, and the U.S. dollar kind of as an overlap, all those things. So let's talk about this. Where do you think we're at on inflation, Evgeny? It seems like regular Americans are suffering no matter what they're buying.
Well, the April Fool's joke is on the American people, literally, and inflation is the April Fool's joke. You can't make this up. The government is really delivering on that for this April Fool's. The average American is literally 5 times poorer in the last 5 decades. First of all, if you look at what the average American family looked like in 1976, only the husband worked, right? One income in the family. The family had mortgage-free house. The college cost $1,000, and the family had 2.2 cars on average. Okay, if you compare that to the average American family today, they don't have 2.2 cars; they have 2.2 jobs. So now the husband and the wife have to side hustle in order to make it through. Average indebtedness is over $700,000. College costs $90,000, and the car situation has shrunk by half a car. Literally 1.7 cars is the average. And I just saw a statistic that 30% of new car purchases where people are trading in the old car. The old car comes with underwater loan, meaning people are trading in the car, but the car is worth much less, to be precise, $8,000 less than the outstanding loan. So not only people don't have 2.2 cars, but the 1.7 they have them on a car loan with probably 8-year maturity.
Yeah, and for the audience, underwater is a very typical terminology used by dealerships. You come in, you've got a car that you bought 4 years ago. You think it's going to be close to being the value of what the street value would be. It turns out because you paid way too much for it, you had a very high interest rate potentially. You take it in, and now you have negative equity. So instead of thinking that you're bringing equity to the table, just for the audience so they get that negative equity, they can rewrap that depending on your credit into your new loan. So if you're buying a new car for let's say your old car had 5,000 in negative equity, you're buying a car for 10,000. We're just making up numbers. Now,
actually, the average is now 50,000.
Yeah, of course, the new cars are crazy expensive. I mean, I can't believe a Grand Wagoneer is now $100,000 car, a Jeep Grand Wagoneer. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's ridiculous. But anyway, they would just rewrap your negative equity into the new loan. So now you drive off the lot. It's already lost value. But of course, now you also took your negative equity. You're upside down. I don't even know if there's any hope for any of that. Maybe you hope that the car gets totaled and the insurance company pays it off. But I don't
actually
cover the
you're
negative
gonna be
equity.
upside down with that too.
Yeah, I mean,
because the insurance company will pay you
horrible.
Whatever the street value is, not the loan value.
It's horrible what's going on. And sometimes I think that's one thing I don't like about Donald Trump. And I'll say that because he's so affluent, and he's made such an incredible amount of money alone in just his crypto holdings, let alone everything else. Sometime he is out of touch with reality of what's going on, really effectually with the American public. It's kind of like, how's your 10% credit card interest going for you there, Afghani?
Now it's more like 35%.
Yeah, George hasn't seen it. We were laughing about it on the show. You can see George shaking his head. George, you enjoying your 10% credit
Listen,
card?
that 10% interest credit card rate he promised us is right there with the gold audit of Fort Knox.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right there with no worse.
There is no gold in Fort Knox.
Yeah, George said by February 20th Donald Trump did, not George. At February 20th, he was going to make the credit card companies take at least only 10% interest for an entire
January
year.
20th.
Yeah. No, I think it was February.
January 20th.
Was
it? 1 year, 1 year in office, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, it never happened. He bullshitted us about that. But he's out of touch because he doesn't have any financial issues. He's got lots of things that are streaming him income. Of course, they're mining Bitcoin at about 35,000 a Bitcoin at the Texas facility. So he's still coming up even at the lower prices of Bitcoin. My argument is that's the problem. We have a Congress that ineffectually uses it. 90% of them are on the grift or the take on both sides of the aisle. They don't recognize that the American public's suffering. Of course, they just send money out willy-nilly. They launder money through USAID. Where's the relief, Afghani? Do you think there's a solution here for inflation? Because I don't feel like there is currently.
There's a simple solution. We go to hyperinflation.
Yeah.
That's the only solution at the moment. And let's dive into that. If you look in 2025, the compilation of all central banks, which are basically run by the same cartel, printed 10.4%. And if you look at the global economic growth, that was only 3.2%. So effectively, they embedded a 7.2% inflation. And you'd say, 7.2%, that's like a banana republic countries that. No, we're living in a banana republic country. The US inflation is also 7%. Don't let the government fool you for April Fools that it's 2%.
Yeah, it's clearly not 2%. When they give those numbers and you compare the cost, even at the grocery store, I often talk to my wife, you go there and you feel like you're getting extorted by the mafia. You hit the counter and you think you've kind of decided how much it's going to be, and it's always more than that. Doesn't matter whether it's Costco or otherwise. I know there's one way to solve this. I say we go in and we seize all the small banks and all the families that own the Federal Reserve. We seize all their assets. Boom. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. We're out of debt because we've taken back all the money that's been stolen from the American public from all those banking institutions. And because it's all fraud, in my opinion, a fiat currency that we pay full face value. They print a bill for a couple of pennies. Some people say 6 cents. Some people say 8 cents. Other people say 2 cents. Let's just say it's 10 cents. And then they charge us face value and they charge us interest on that. It doesn't seem reasonable to me. I think it's extortion, in my opinion. And here we are. There's a solution. The debt would be wiped out overnight because we would just seize every dollar they ever made off of us. I would execute them on public TV personally, but I'm not sure that'd be very popular. But I'm not trying to be a popular president. I would just do what's necessary.
There's a small legal hinge which nobody has really explored. The Federal Reserve was authorized to have a license to represent the U.S. as a central bank for 99 years. In 1913, as you'd hear from your next guest here. Obviously, that expired in 2012. In 2012, I was sitting there watching to hear somebody extending the license to the Federal Reserve or doing something. Crickets. We haven't heard anything in 14 years about giving the Federal Reserve an extension on its 99-year contract with the federal government. So
perfect opportunity to get rid of them.
How are they operating? Nobody has asked that question.
Well, it's not the first time that we've heard the federal government doing something that would be illegal by statute. We get a lot of agencies, a lot of employees that think they're above the law. It isn't really
Yep.
application of the law.
Last time a president tried to intervene, he got assassinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct.
That's why you have to strike first and strike hard. In my opinion, it's an overnight operation. You go in and snatch them all up. And you do it swiftly. I would do it quietly and swiftly. It would happen before they knew what happened to them. If it was me, again, I don't think I'll ever be president, so I don't think they have anything to worry about. But here's the thing, Evgeny. Inflation, some people have said that the real solution would be a currency like Ripple, as an example. That some kind of a replacement system. We know right now the SWIFT system is on its way out. Of course, an antiquated system. It looks like it's slowly being replaced by Ripple. At least that's the discussion behind the scenes. There's a role for Ethereum in that, and Cardano and others. The ISO 20022 tokens all seem to have a piece of what's changing rapidly. What's your thoughts on what do you think is going to happen to our banking system? And do you think maybe is there a bigger plan here to get inflation under control and maybe get the US dollar out of the debt?
Well, let's start first of all with the different crypto solutions out there. It's very simple, and that's what Bitcoin attempted to do. If you print more money than what the economy needs, you're going to create inflation. That's simply the fact. Like, if you have more money chasing the same old goods, the same old services, and the same assets, of course, the price will go up. Now, Fed Chairman Powell said that that's no longer there. No, that's still there. The solutions then really have to be something tied to what the economy looks like. And unfortunately, everybody has those metrics. Just nobody is paying attention to them, and nobody is following them. In fact, when it comes to inflation, everybody has really tweaked the models, the definitions, in order to come up with the 2%, which obviously has no basis in reality. So they're actually doing a proper propaganda April Fool's job when they report any of these numbers, whether it's unemployment, whether it's employment, whether it's inflation, right? When it comes to the banks, though, let me break your bubble there. There's not much money in the banks. There's, first of all, by definition, $17 trillion deposited at the banks in the US. Now, of that, the banks are probably sitting on substantial losses in treasuries. Because if you bought a 30-year treasury in 2020, which with a maturity of 2050, that treasury bond had 1.25% coupon and sold for about 97 cents on $100 face value. That same treasury bond is now trading 52% lower. So if you bought that treasury bond, and there was 76 billion of that bought when that particular bond was issued, you've lost 52% of your money already. This is in nominal terms. Now, if you factor in that the dollar depreciated 46% in the last 6 years, you've lost 76% of the money you invested in that treasury bond. So all the banks that are holding this stuff are basically holding a bunch of toilet paper. And that's what bankrupted Silicon Valley Bank. That was the simple problem they had. They were sitting on billions of losses on such paper. And when $42 billion were withdrawn out of the bank because another bank whispered in the customer's ears that Silicon Valley Bank is not any more liquid or solvent, and the money went out, they had to sell treasury bills that are 50% underwater. Obviously, you can't return people's deposits if you only have 50% of them. So storming the banks is not going to help much because there's not much money there. Same as Fort Knox, as you said.
Yeah, it's a frightening situation. I just caught a piece of news I think last night that the U.S. government had just contracted with Palantir to come up with an IRS auditing AI technology to look for high value audit targets based on an AI deciding from your returns, your lifestyle, et cetera. Which, when you think about that, the IRS is basically the collection arm for the interest. But more and more Americans seem to be unhappy and are unwilling to give the U.S. government their taxes or file taxes because they feel like the money is just being wasted. They're giving it away to foreign countries. They're giving it away to, so many countries for all the wrong reasons. I still don't know that we ever should have backed Ukraine for a number of reasons. I have my own belief system about what happened there. Frightening when it comes to the bio labs and the CIA and, of course, trafficking issues. But the point is, when you look at USAID and how much money was laundered through there, I'm not positive that we're not even more trouble than people think, because I think people are fed up. They're fed up with both sides of the aisle. And you look at publicly what's going on. George, you tell me, do you feel like when you're in the chat rooms and you're talking to people and you're doing things, you think people are satisfied with the way the government is using the revenue they are taking in from our tax dollars?
Are they satisfied?
Yeah.
Only someone that's delusional would say that they're satisfied. I mean, listen, God knows if people actually found out more of what the government's still hiding from us, they'd probably stop. Every person should just stop paying taxes the way it's going. There's so much fraud and abuse, but when you find a fraud and abuse, the other side fights on it, and which is because either they're benefiting from it. And if you just look at our Medicaid, Medicare issues, with all the fraud and money that's being wasted, if you stopped all that, you probably have a lot more benefits for other people that really need it. Our military veterans, our homeless veterans, but it's just USAID. The whole problem was when Elon Musk came in and with Doge, they were battling because they were going to get exposed. Why would any politician be opposed to rooting out government fraud and wasting money? Because they're in on it. Just same thing with election. Anybody that doesn't want election integrity, they're in on it. And don't let that fool you, because there's a lot of people on both sides that do that. Hence why we're at.
They don't have to worry about anymore where the money of the federal budget is being spent. Pretty soon it will be all interest on the federal debt. Because right now it's a quarter of all the receipts the federal government gets, they spend on interest on their debt. 1/4.
If you let's look at something with the government, with the politicians right now. Let's talk about the Clarity Act. So the bankers are trying to sabotage the Clarity Act and they want to remove staking for crypto companies, the ability to stake, which gives us our ability to make money on our crypto in there because the banks can't compete. Correct. So the only way that's getting changed in legislation in the bill is by people in the banking industry either paying off, lobbying, all that stuff with the politicians. Yeah, crypto should be a totally separate, shouldn't be nothing with the banking. They shouldn't be allowed in it. If the banking don't want to change their ways and want to stay in the old way, then that's on them. Well, we're going to something new, and they shouldn't be allowed. And this is where we're at. It's on every level, no matter where you turn, left, right. There's corruption.
Serious one. Yeah. Again, the April Fool's joke is on the working Americans. They are getting absolutely shafted by both banks and government. And, you're depositing your hard-earned dollars in a bank, and that bank is now making 10% on that. And they don't give you a penny of that. That's your money that they're gambling away in the trade and trading with that money.
And even when you lock it up, the interest rates are such garbage. They charge you 30+% on a credit card. They overcharge you on mortgages. They overcharge you on fees. This fee, that fee, bounce check, late fee. If you don't keep a certain amount in your balance, then you're going to get hit. And that's the thing. They've gotten away with it for so long, and here comes the crypto industry that wants to innovate. They want to give you low interest loans. They want to allow you to buy one Bitcoin, secure that as your down payment, and then give you a 3% mortgage. There's a lot of strategies that are in play that look
Yeah.
great. They sound great, but here comes the banking cartels, one of the most powerful lobbyists there are. They've already got all these damn congressional members on the take. They're over there pissing and moaning because they can't be competitive. And in any other industry, the government would just say, well, you got to be competitive or you're going to go out of business. But they don't do that with the banking system because, of course, just like you mentioned, there aren't enough dollars in banks. They're worried about the fraud being exposed of what's been going on in the banking industry. You know, and this is the problem. The American public, is hoping that there's going to be some solution. Some people believe in Jasara and Nasara. They think that somehow that's going to solve the world's problems, that they better buy some more Iraqi dinar. And my comment is there's no cavalry coming to get us.
No,
and if we continue to allow this to go on, there is a solution. Crypto is a good solution. There's a solution in a lot of ways. We've got to get rid of this banking system. When I think of what really disgusts me is when I look at my mom's Social Security, it doesn't even keep up with inflation. Now they say it's going to be broke by a certain year, yet they borrowed money illegally. There was no system in place where they should have ever been allowed to borrow money from the Social Security system, and they did. And what did they give us? They gave us a bunch of treasuries.
It's even worse. If you remember,
they owe four point some odd trillion dollars to Social Security, and they're talking about it going broke. Well, that's a great solution. Sorry, we borrowed the money. Looks like they're going to go broke. We got to go. Great way to now pay back the 4 point some odd trillion. I mean, the thing is, even Congress, for the audience, I just got to point this out. Think about how they've been pushing on Donald Trump, using the weaponized judiciary because they don't want tariffs. The tariffs are literally coming out of these other countries. They're not being all passed through. And at the end of the day, this country, originally the founders and framers, wanted the country to be run on the ports, duties, and tariffs. There was no taxation because they'd already dealt with taxation with no representation with every monarchy known to man. They wanted something different here. That was the grand experiment. Taxation came in. It never went away. It was supposed to be temporary. But of course, the bankers didn't have a plan for that. And if you want to know more about this, you definitely need to join the show on Thursday, the Big Mig Show, when Griffin comes on. Of course, the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. If you guys want to find out the truth, come Thursday at 11 a.m. Listen to it. We're on all major podcast platforms. But Afghani, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. What do you think happens to the U.S. dollar if you're going to be predictive? Where are we heading? Because there are people saying that this kind of debt is not sustainable. A lot of countries, that's why the BRICS system came into place. A lot of countries don't want the US dollar to be the petrodollar. Of course, it gives us an incredible amount of power. Donald Trump says if you go with BRICS, he's going to hammer you with sanctions. Where do you think we're heading on the US dollar, man?
Well, no, it has to. The US dollar will have to have serious inflation to reconcile for everything that we're talking about here. So first, let's look at the debt. 39 approaching $40 trillion. A quarter of the budget goes to interest on that debt. Practically, if you're an individual, you would have been bankrupt many moons ago.
Yeah. The banks would have shut you down, Afghani. If this was a business. George and I talk about this. Nobody in our government, with the exception of Donald Trump, and he's not even trying to run our government like a business. These congressional members, 90% of them have no business experience. They're career scumbag politicians, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us but hyperinflation is a frightening term. My wife lived through hyperinflation in Zimbabwe. And you look at what happened to the Zimbabwe dollar, it would take a whole wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. That's what Zimbabwe actually came out with a $10 million and $100 million Zimbabwe note to compensate because that's how worthless the currency was. England had just, hoard out that country something awful. The point is hyperinflation. How do these Americans who already can't afford these prices, how do you solve it with hyperinflation for them? They're going to hit the street with guns if that happens, are they not?
Well, you kind of solve it. Let's walk through the scenario. If I owe $40 trillion and let's imagine that I print so much dollars that I create 100% inflation. literally in 1 year of 100% inflation, my debt will be basically half in value. So I can basically half my obligation by running the inflation mill. And at the same time, the receipts at the IRS will double. So that effectively, inflation is the solution to this problem. So what does that mean for the average person? Well, their salary definitely not going to keep up with the inflation, so they're going to get impoverished massively, and still they're going to see some increase in their salary, but it'll not be anything close to what the prices in the supermarkets would be. So effectively, you'll start to see secondhand shops all over the place where you can wear the 1980s jeans, which are still good quality compared to the current ones, which will fall apart in 2 weeks. But still, people live through it. The real trouble is for retirees, because you saved all your life, you saved $2 million, and tomorrow with $2 million, you can buy 2 loaves of bread, for example. And that's where the biggest pain is going to be. And ultimately, anybody that's holding a bond, again, with a 3, 4, 5, 6% interest rate is going to be royally screwed, because that thing is going to turn into toilet paper. So effectively, inflation is kind of like you work all day, you put food on the table for dinner, the inflation comes in, grabs the tablecloth, throws it out the window, and says, go work again.
Well, and that doesn't sound like much of a solution. When I think of regular Americans out there, the tricky part for regular Americans, they've never lived through a hyperinflation event. The closest thing would be the Great Depression. My father lived through the Great Depression. He told me there were some days all he had to eat was an apple because things were so expensive. He come from an extremely wealthy family during that. Prior to the stock market going belly up, my grandfather was a very affluent. He opened one of the 3rd Italian restaurants in New York, invested a lot of money. He owned lots of rental properties and other things, but he'd leveraged himself, came in, wiped out everything. And they lived very well. They had chauffeurs and all kinds of, staff. I've got some pictures of back then that they lived in big houses and the rest of it. Of course, wiped them all out. My dad was barely getting by. His brothers and him were suffering pretty dramatically. Most Americans, most of those people have passed away at this point. They don't remember what that was like. But the difference is now, I would have to say, knowing the Americans that I know, if they were dealing with hyperinflation and they were watching their parents suffer through it, I would think that they would probably hit the street. I think they would probably be kidnapping people, snatching up people like Bill Gates, torturing them. That's what would happen. I don't think we would get a calm event through hyperinflation here in the United States, because the problem being that most of the Americans that know about crypto, as an example, they're very unhappy with the banks trying to control the Clarity Act. They're very unhappy with David Sachs having events that are supposed to be technology crypto events where Mark Zuckerberg is sitting on one side of the table when they know he used $460 million in Zuckerbucks, and Bill Gates is on the other side of the table, who went to Epstein Island allegedly and arguably 27 or 28 times on the other side of Donald Trump. Clearly, it's a photo op. David Sachs is in denial of what regular Americans are going through. I'd have to say that we would have, and George, you tell me if you disagree, I feel like we would have an extremely violent uprising. And I don't know that the U.S. government, there's been some polling within the military that in a violent uprising by American citizens, 83% of most military would side with regular Americans because they've got family members and parents. 83% would side with Americans in a government uprising, and basically the people against the government. George, you tell me your thoughts. If there was hyperinflation where you knew that your family's personal savings would be wiped out, how do you think that regular Americans would
First, I'm going to go to Ivangi's house and say, you brought it up on the show. You jinxed us.
Yeah.
And get really mad at him. I mean, it's justifiable uprising. And you can't just wipe people's accounts and money out. What, they're all going to suffer because the government can't do what they need to do? You know, you brought up the country should run like a business. And they can't do that because they can't balance their budget. If you take,
because of special interests.
Yeah.
well, I was going to get to that.
Especially.
Because of the
Yeah,
graph.
I was going to get to that. So hold on. If you take in $1 trillion a year from taxes, whatever, that's all you get to spend. You can't spend more than that. So you need to come up, but these politicians can't. You need to come up and get rid of special interests, get rid of USAID to all the BS that they're doing. What was it intended for? They're not using the money for that. It's the old saying, like, if you're sick, but meanwhile you're trying to help other people, you really truly can't. You can't help anybody until you truly help yourself. The country's sick. We got to stop giving everybody money, fix this country, and once we're better, we're good, then we can truly maybe be helpful again. But until then, I mean, look. Take Israel.
Until
What do we give? How much money we give Israel a year? How much money we give Israel a year? 10 billion? Probably more now.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you have to give them 10 billion a year? For what? They're not a struggling country. Everybody's eating good over there. I got family there. I know how it is. I mean, it's crazy. The money that we give away to everywhere else, meanwhile, Americans are struggling, is baffling. It's Lance, where did those statistics come? Where'd you get them that these people would uprise?
Interestingly enough, I got that from some polling they did that I actually looked at. It was actually a military report. It was an internal document that I read about, George. I mean, now, again, whether those numbers have changed with DEI, that could be why they're trying to do DEI, because they don't want 83% of the military to side with the military.
Even so, though. Even so, all those military, all our people in our military all have family members that are regular citizens not in the military that will be affected. You think they're going to go along with the government if they're screwing over every American and their families? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I wouldn't be surprised if the number's worse. That's why I think they started doing a lot of the DEI hiring, because I feel like they could probably control those people more likely. So, Evgeny, let me ask you, we're kind of a little off what we normally have here for topic. What do you think? Is crypto maybe the possible way to solve this? I know that
absolutely,
there's a solution, because there are some rumors about Ripple that somehow this is going to be the actual currency. That's why they have not done any token burns, that because of the needed supply for how many trillions of dollars in commerce there is and what the plan is with Ripple. Do you think there's any truth to that? Do you think the ISO 2002 tokens? You think
first of all,
there's a different solution that's on the table here? Or is Donald Trump even considering this, or he doesn't give a shit because he's a billionaire and we aren't?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump was not a billionaire until he touched crypto. So,
no,
he was not.
He's been on Forbes list before in the billions.
Yeah, but then he went bankrupt 3 times.
He was still in the Forbes after that. He didn't. He bankrupt. Okay, so when he had the casinos, right? When he had his 3 top people that were close friends of him running the casinos, and they died in a helicopter crash. That's what screwed him with the casinos, because they were running everything. That's what that. So corporations, business people do it all the time. They'll claim bankruptcy on that one entity or entities, so the others survive. But he's been in the Forbes after that.
Yeah, he was, but the real wealth was created in crypto. That he has more wealth now from crypto than he ever created.
He got a lot of wealth through TMGT Corp to social media with the moves they were making too. So,
yes, the solution definitely is in crypto, because effectively you forget about all that corrupt old system and you get into a system where it's just honest. You cannot. Everything's displayed on the blockchain, and you cannot fool anybody of what the accounting looks like, right?
So what do you think the realistic blueprint or architecture is for that? Because currently the logic in the public, and at least in a lot of the crypto discussions, everybody knows that Bitcoin is a store of value, but it doesn't necessarily solve the current flaws in the banking system. That's why many people think it's Ethereum and XRP, that there's a solution where those assets maybe are potentially working together along with the ISOs. What do you think is really, because again, I don't see any other infrastructure piece in the crypto world that comes close to what those projects provide.
the solution is not the blockchain itself. I mean, yes, it's a tool that makes transparency very easy.
Mm-hmm.
The solution is actually in providing yield to people. So if the inflation is 7%, people need to make 8% in order to cover their savings and make sure that they retain purchasing power. And that yield comes from real working businesses. It doesn't come from financial gimmickry. It doesn't come from somebody monopolizing something or making political contribution like XRP has done.
Mm-hmm.
And let me be honest, in 2014, I made a statement that XRP is a scam, and I still maintain that statement. These guys have never had any decent technology until recently. They started buying up companies after they
they have bought quite a few companies at this point. Do you think that's changed the outlook for them?
It certainly has. Now that they have money, political influence, and they bought a few companies, yeah, they can change the technology, which they can now have technology because they never had technology before. So they can push that big narrative that they'll be the solution, but they're not the solution because Ethereum works much better.
Let me ask you, in the lawsuit, there was a lot that was divulged. There's 3,300 different individual contracts that were under NDA that came out in the Ripple SEC lawsuit that still haven't been completely announced, other than some of the countries involved that announced these relationships. It appears that Ripple has done a lot of work in making alliances with, of course, most of the countries around the globe in one way or another. Japan being one example. Those contracts, even now, only a couple of hundred of them have people been able to backtrack and figure out what's going on, because a lot of them still are under NDA. And of course, the SEC, the settlement of that has still left some gray area when it comes to Ripple.
Well, again, Ripple has some of those contracts, but it's with banks to basically migrate their mainframe from 1976 onto the centralized blockchain that Ripple runs. Again, it's very bad solution on top of that's already a bad solution. I would say if people start, because of inflation around the globe, start checking out of the banking systems, nobody would be using Ripple, period. They will be using properly decentralized blockchains where nobody controls the blockchain, which is the Cardanos of the Solanas and the Ethereums of the world. And ultimately, again, Ripple has tried to concentrate all the power in them so they can make money just like a bank does. So Ripple is actually nothing different than a bank. And remember,
all the projects that are out there, what do you think is the most likely to be able to solve this? Because of course, look, everybody needs some form of banking. I hate to even use the term banking, but everybody needs a way to actually do transactional business. They need a way to make a payment. They need a way to receive a payment. One thing that's difficult for the public, and we do these education pieces. George does this amazing job, and he organizes these education pieces weekly for us that we do on the show. And we try to explain to people from ground up, here's a wallet, here's what an altcoin is, here's what this is, here's what that is. But even that being said, let's face it, multiple chains for the average American is confusing. Multiple that you can't buy, you you need to have this wallet to accept this token and this wallet to accept this token. Not one wallet that rules them all, kind of like the Lord of the Rings. We need one wallet. Yeah. George has mentioned, he said, somebody's got to come up with just the one-stop Google shop. George.
No, that doesn't work. If you look, even now, with all the monopolization in the banking world, we still have 4,000 banks. Because you have different needs, people have different businesses. I believe in a decentralized world. If you give people enough freedom, different people will come up with different solutions that will work for niche markets.
Wait a minute.
And
why
that's
not?
Be
why
the
not?
Solution.
Why not? If there's one, let's say one crypto exchange that had everything, all the crypto on it, and one wallet that'll accept all of it instead of
that sounds like communism.
Why? No. I'm saying
That's
no,
what
no, no,
sounds-
no,
that
no, no,
sounds
no,
like
no.
Cuba.
No.
You know, you have Fidel
No,
Castro.
no.
and the Communist
You're
Party.
missing the point. No. Anybody could build it. You could build one. Lance could build another one. His name. You can go to either one you want. There could be 20 people building them. But instead of having, certain exchanges only have this crypto, another exchange only has these cryptos. This one will only take this. Yada yada yada. This is what for crypto, for people to adopt crypto, especially people that are older and don't understand it. You're trying to make it simpler for them. But yet you have all these hurdles to go over.
No, the hurdle is not in the different choices. The problem with crypto is not that you have all these different cryptos and all these blockchains. And I think we don't have enough. The problem is in the user friendliness. Crypto is built by kids that have never also been in business.
You just said it, Ivanka, you just said it, user friendliness. If you could design a wallet where it's user friendly, where it could accept any cryptocurrency exchange or this and that, isn't that user friendly?
That is user friendly.
You just mocked me 2 minutes ago. Communism. See, that's why this is why we break it down and simplify.
But the average person, the older demographic, listen, sure, the 20-year-old kids, they get it because, of course, they've been doing it maybe since they were 16.
It's not, listen,
it's not, got involved very early.
You can go beyond that. Forget it. You can go beyond crypto. You can take anything that a lot of people, programmers that are so brilliantly smart, they design stuff, not only for crypto, but for mostly anything, not realizing that how it's going to be for the everyday person.
Mm-hmm. It's the real world application. On paper, it sounds great. It sounds great when they're presenting it to hedge funds or Wall Street or other sources of revenue, I guess, investment capital. But when it comes down to a regular person, there's no possible way that I could explain to my mom how to use a crypto wallet at this point. She's in her 90s. If I said to her, "Hey, mom, you can pay for this or pay for that," she'd be like, "I don't understand why I can't just use my bank account." The point is, that's the struggle, because there's a lot of concepts out there and projects that sound great, right? They sound great on paper when you talk about real world assets. And even this new mortgage thing that's being offered, where you put a Bitcoin up and you can capitalize and get a 3% mortgage, and then you still own the Bitcoin. So the banks are taking the chance that it's going to be an appreciating asset that will secure for them. I saw a whole story on it. We'll probably cover it on the next show. But how do we get past that? And I guess, I'm not suggesting that it should only be one solution, but, the more complicated the solution is, the more difficult it's going to be to convince people, that really, honestly, if I want to say it in the way I would say it, fuck the Federal Reserve.
I have a better example.
Go ahead, George.
I have something that we're all involved in. We're revolutionizing healthcare through the healthcare wallets, right? You take your people now, Medicare people, the older people. You're going to give them a healthcare wallet and pay with that. But if it's complicated, they're going to be like, what? They're going to be so lost.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep it.
You have to make it user-friendly and foolproof. All the crypto solutions out there, first of all, just starting out with a 12-word phrase, immediately you've created a serious problem right there.
Yeah, those seed phrases, and then God forbid they think they can just, somebody asked me the day, "Hey, well, if I lose that seed phrase, I should be able to just call and get a new one, right?"
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, oh, hell no. No, you're done.
25% of Bitcoin is lost because of that.
Yeah. Those and the ones that are in the landfills are the ones that the government took wallets from people, didn't get the seed phrases, and there's no recovery at this point. Of course,
there's a recovery. Don't worry about it. They got their quantum computing system is going to be breaking it. Don't worry about it. You think this they're just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
But
listen, here's a question. Let me ask him. Let's look at Satoshi Nakamoto's wallet. It's been dormant.
1.1.
It's
been
1.1
million Bitcoins there.
If somebody doesn't if he's not around, or if he's just chilling and under a different name, or wherever he is or they are, if they don't change that wallet's going to be wiped.
Correct. So that's exactly the challenge for.
That's why I want to get. That's why I've been trying to get a hold of quantum computer first, so I can get a hold of that wallet. It's only fair. I'll share. Trust me, everybody.
Bitcoin. They're saying with quantum, what Evgeny said was that. But let me get back to this for the audience. What's this? Is there a solution? Because here, at the end of the day, I look at this. Hyperinflation is a realistic possibility. Clearly, our U.S. dollar is losing value. You look at even its value against the euro. I checked it the other day. It's down. Our dollar is weakening and weakening and weakening for a number of reasons. Nobody really likes our foreign policy. What's the fix? How do we fix this? Is crypto going to fix this? And if so, how is it fixed? And I don't think there's one project, again, or two projects or three projects. That's why I mentioned Ripple and I mentioned ISO 2002 and Cardano, header hash graph. There's a lot of great projects, but how do we fix it using the projects that are already current? Is there a project that can really do that?
Again, all these projects are though infrastructure. So don't forget, when you log into your bank online banking, you're not looking at COBOL programming and mainframe computing and thinking, how do I move a message over the IBM message bus on the mainframe?
Yeah,
you don't. It's obfuscated and it's user friendly. Now it took the banks only 50 years to get to that point, but they're there. It's user friendly. At this point, it's user friendly. Crypto will get to that point, and the solution, there'll be million solutions in the back, different blockchains, different tokens, all that stuff. But you may go, because you work at a particular company, that company might give you a wallet and you may use that. You are retired and you may be using a health wallet that's solving your healthcare benefits. And there'll be millions of those different wallets, as long as they're interconnected and something in the back is allowing the switching between one message to another. I mean, look, we solved that with email. Like most people don't know, but they can look at the header of their email, and there's like one page. If you send one sentence email, there's a whole page of system messages for your email to get through the world of servers from one server to another. And people figured it out how to do that without burdening the user of how their message gets from you to you.
I remember having my first computer, and it was DOS, and it was a 386 60 megahertz machine.
That's the machine I learned on too.
Yeah, back then. Of course, it was innovative. And even when AOL came out, that was one of the simple mail solutions, Hotmail, a simple solution. But at the end of the day, it still took, 20 years?
Yeah.
25 years? I don't know when, I can't even remember when it first started, but even now, the older demographic can struggle with that. And I think for crypto to really go mainstream and be a solution for the banking world, it needs to be done much more quickly. Because again, I don't think the U.S. government with $40 trillion in debt has the luxury of time on its side.
No.
As corrupt as our congressional members are, and as broken as the system is, let's face it, Elon Musk found 14 magic money computers, he called them, that were not online with the Treasury Department. I could basically go in and say, Evgeny Mitkov, contract, I'm going to send him 10 billion. I could basically do that, and there was no restriction on that. Who knows how much money was stolen like that? I don't even know who was in charge of those machines. We haven't heard anything about an investigation about the magic money computers. Elon Musk bowed out. So do you think there's anything in the next, let's use a window. Let's use a window of 3 to 5 years. With the current projects that are online, are any of them going to step to the front, or 10 of them going to step to the front, and this is going to be the new banking system, or is this going to be a slow crawl, and we're going to suffer along the way and be miserable, and we're going to watch the older demographic because they're going to be frustrated. Even with the regulation, they're frustrated. They don't even know what the Clarity Act and the Genius Act are. I heard some older people talking about it the other day. They had no idea what the hell it was.
Of course.
And so what are we talking? It's going to be the people from 35 down, and everybody from 35 up or 40 up are the people that don't really understand this stuff. We understand it, but we're the exception in our age demographic. I would bet if we went out and interviewed 100 Americans in our age demographic, I'd be surprised. A lot of them would have said, "Oh yeah, you mean Bitcoin?" That would be their answer on everything crypto. You mean Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Go ahead, take it from there.
I would look, everything you see on the crypto side, I would consider it pretty much infrastructure play. You don't see anything in the crypto that actually makes money and preserves capital for people. And I think people that take the infrastructure that has been built and make money with it As you know, in the dot-com days, all those dot-coms that built all sorts of infrastructure, they all went out of business. It was Amazon that took all that
Oh,
and
yeah.
built a profitable business out of it that
Yeah.
made money. You will see the same thing with the crypto stuff that's been built so far. It's not going to be the XRP. It's not going to be the Ethereum. In fact, if we're really successful, people wouldn't even know about Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
It will be somebody that makes it user friendly, preserves people capital, or allows their business to be shared with other people.
You know what? I think one of the major flaws in the current system, one of the things that they're missing, Ripple made an investment, but they don't seem to be deploying any of the capital. They supposedly put $50 million in their head, their chief, not financial, their chief legal officer. He supposedly is in charge of it. It's supposed to be an education fund that they're going to educate people. I don't think they're doing any of that. I think it was more of an operation for them to have access to that $50 million in capital, maybe for private uses.
It's probably for lobbying. No, that money goes for lobbying, basically.
Yeah,
you're educating congressmen and with that money.
Yeah, and that's educating congressmen. I love that. I love how that's wrapped. But the point is, don't you think that's one of the worst things? Because we talk about on this show. I'm surprised that with the popularity of this show, we haven't had an unlimited amount of sponsors coming to us that want to run commercials. Even Rumble themselves for the Rumble wallet. They're only focused on their top 40, shows on Rumble. But the point is with Rumble, that really none of those shows are crypto shows. We're the top crypto show on their platform, and you don't see them embracing us to do the Rumble. Which again, I'm not picking on Rumble. I'm picking on the industry in itself. That the crypto industry isn't doubling down with education efforts because there are a lot of people that want to understand it, but they're frustrated. They don't understand it. I see it in the chat rooms even. Sure, the top 2, 3, 4, 5% of accounts on social media, they understand all the pieces and they can get into deep discussions about it. But when it comes to regular people, they don't understand it at all.
So I think the solution would be, obviously we're now created the DOS system. Somebody, you need Linux, Windows, and AOS maybe, that creates some layer of obfuscation from machine language, if you wish. And then the real applications start getting built on top, or businesses start using this stuff. We're still in machine language so far in crypto. Nobody has really built a decent operating system that makes it somewhat user-friendly so businesses can take it on. Ethereum is sort of there, but not really. And certainly not quantum proof. But ultimately, for the mass adoption to happen, businesses need to be taking this and basically tokenizing their business. The real world assets need to be on chain, paying salaries, paying dividends, sharing, borrowing against their business collateral in order to grow the business, and then paying back people through that, right? That's where the adoption is going to come in. And
sounds great, but what do you think the timeline is on that?
Well, depends how quickly the current banking system folds. If it folds fast, people will move to the new one very quickly.
Yeah,
they'll have no choice. If the banking system doesn't fold quickly, then it will be a slow drag out process.
Do you think the current banking system with the powers that be, when I look at the Federal Reserve System and I look at what Russia did to get rid of them, right? And you look at how complex that was, to the point that there's a lot of theories about how many assassination attempts they tried to put on Alexander Putin, that comes from his own government, having different people have commented on it. They're so nefarious and they're so intertwined with our current government. And I think they can put the fear in almost anybody because, on the one side of it, incredible capital, incredible power. I don't know how we get them to fold unless we had an administration that was like, of course, JFK. A lot of people believe he was assassinated because of his intent to get rid of the Federal Reserve. He wanted to put us back on a silver standard, preferably silver and gold, but he made it very clear. It's kind of like his comments about the CIA. I'm going to scatter them to the winds, but they took him out. Donald Trump, being the guy he is, I would imagine that he would take a threat by the Federal Reserve Bank as a very serious threat. I said it before, the only way you could really take them out is you'd have to do it in one swift, multiple day event where you snatch up all the leadership. Basically, you'd have to wipe out their entire DNA. You couldn't allow any of them, especially people like the Rothschilds, you couldn't allow any of them to exist. I'm not even sure if it gets even worse than that when you start talking about their involvement in the UK and otherwise. We know that there's a lot of people allege that the 150 people are truly running the world. I don't know if that's true or not. That's the argument.
That sounds about right. But
what do you think
the reality is
architecture-
when you have a cancer, which is what this is,
Yeah.
It ultimately dies when the body dies.
Mhm.
So effectively, and you can do the chemotherapy and do all this stuff, but either you cut out the cancer, which is very difficult, that means revolution, or you just let the body die with the cancer.
Yeah. My take
Wait a
is-
minute.
Yeah.
So
sure.
we have, okay, so you said, I know you're using cancer as an example. So, okay, we have the drug, we have the ability to kill the cancer. We just can't get it injected to kill the cancer.
Yes, that's correct. That's the tough part at the moment.
Yeah, there's that's why they
'Cause
like
the cancer.
This is why they
again,
like the chaos. This is why they like chaos and division, because it keeps everybody distracted from what they're really doing behind the scenes. Just like the Iran war. I mean, while the Iran war, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that, they're sneaky peeky. But Lance, we got a jet.
Yeah,
it's a stage 4 cancer where it's in the political system, it's in the banking system, it's everywhere, right? And it's pretty difficult to reverse a stage 4 cancer at this point.
That's why you can never go wrong with just taking money out of the banks, buying gold and silver, and keeping that stored somewhere safe.
That's kind of like chemotherapy, actually.
What?
Exactly.
Yeah, if everybody checked out, if everybody stopped actually participating in the system, that will be an instant. Like if all of a sudden people say, you know what, I'm just not going to do that. And if everybody did that, that will be an instant getting rid of the cancer.
Yeah, there'd probably be some short-term pain for sure. Evgeny, let me ask you this in the little bit of time we've got left, just the last thing. Do you think currently for the audience, I like to share it with them, is there any projects you think that are currently available that have that might have the opportunity for upside over the next 5 to 8 years? Which ones do you prefer, if any? Are you a header or hash graph guy? Are you an IOTA guy? I mean, is there anything that you like right now for yourself that maybe you're buying? That again, this isn't financial advice for the audience. It's educational material, so you can talk to your own financial advisors. But I like to ask people that just to give people an idea. I have projects I'm invested in. We don't necessarily agree on everything that you and I are discussing right now, but that's what it's all about. Diversification is what gives you some safety net. Is there anything out there you like?
Well, I have a simple. This is what I use personally. It's just, first of all, depending on the conditions, any even successful business could fold overnight, right? Something bad happens and it's gone. So the key to success is actually diversification. And the Kaufman Foundation has a great statistic on that. You have to invest in 159 startups in order to hit a unicorn. Now, in the good old days, that used to take literally 12.9 years in their statistics. And you have to invest that time of meeting with companies in order to hit 159 companies. Well, now in the crypto universe, you can just go down and check 159 projects in a matter of seconds and be part of that. And even if 80% of those turn out to be scams and frauds, guess what? That's the same statistic in the real world. Again, going to quote the Kaufman Foundation, out of those 159 companies, 80 of them will never turn a penny in revenue. So that's just startup life. But the beauty of crypto is that it allows you to get on the ground floor, whereas the 1940s Securities Act specifically forbids individuals from being investors in startups. They can only invest in used bubble gum in the IPO market.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. You're right. You do get in from the ground floor,
which is a great thing.
Yeah. I'd love, maybe we got to get you back on. We'll talk more about that. I know we're out of time for today. We've got a busy schedule, and I know you do too. Afghani, first of all, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's always enlightening to have you on. Lots of topics, lots of diversity in these conversations. We'll have to do this a little more often. All right, now listen, you guys know the drill. If you like the show, thumbs up, comment, subscribe. You can do, again, at a minimum, hit the follow button. If you can do the paid subscription for $5 a month, we greatly appreciate it. You can always gift subscriptions. You can tip us in the Rumble crypto wallet. Always looking for crypto tips. And of course, we appreciate it. You can also do Rumble Premium Perplexity with the Rumble membership. That's a great way to thank Rumble. So listen, if you love the show, go over, follow Solum Global. Those guys sponsor our show. We love the guys over at Solum.global. They got a lot of big news coming out. So Tuesday, founder of Solum Global will be here, Kirk St. John's. Thursday, remember, if you want to know about the creature from Jekyll Island, we touched on it today. The author of the original book joining us, very, very unique interview. He doesn't do a lot of interviews anymore. We're very lucky to have him on the Big Ming Show. So guys, check that out. Follow Afghani, your social media. How do people follow you if they want to get more information from you?
It's Evgeny Mitkov at Twitter. That's pretty much it. That's where Crypto Twitter lives.
Gotcha. All right, George, last words on our way out the gate, brother.
Last words. So Vangi was talking about startups and investing in good companies that are building great one. Look at Solum Global, Solum.global. That's the internet. That's their website. Check it out. Healthcare wallet.
Healthcare problems, definitely. So any company that really is a real business with real revenue, and then tokenizing that would be a great investment at this point, especially if they can cover the inflation of 7%.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, there's some great returns. Hopefully the banking gets out. Sorry, George.
No, that's all right. We'll see you guys at 11 a.m. today for the Big Mig Show. Until then, go have a coffee, some breakfast. We'll see you there. Love you guys. Peace.
Thank you.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
What if you could predict your financial future? And what if you could trade on it? Introducing Block Trust IRA, the future in your hands. An astonishing 88,000 millionaires were created last year from the Bitcoin boom, and you could be next. Block Trust IRA is the only crypto management firm powered by AI-driven strategies, ranked #1 in the world by Bitcoin Magazine. The Block Trust IRA platform is built for everyone, from first-time buyers to seasoned investors. Predictive AI technology that was once only reserved for insiders and elites is now available to you. It's time to leave the old buy and hold strategies behind. Your assets are protected with military-grade security, offline cold storage, and $200 million in insurance. Visit BlockTrustIRA.com to book your free consultation and ask how to claim up to $2,500 in deposit bonuses today. Bitcoin changed the game. AI changes the strategy.
Hi folks, I'm here today to introduce you to the Prepper Bar from PrepperBar.com, the most unique precious metals product we have seen in a long time. These 62-gram bars are perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 different sizes to fit a multitude of needs. Whether it be from asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade, the Prepper Bar makes a perfect gift for all the precious metal lovers out there. Exclusively made here in the USA and selling out fast. Available in both gold and silver, these slim Prepper Bars fit neatly in your wallet, and their utility enables use in any situation.
Forged through rigorous training and honed by the finest instructors on earth. These canine units serve beside our nation's warriors as they fight to preserve what we cherish. When these warriors complete their duty, the Warrior Dog Foundation provides them with a home deserving of the service they've given us all. At our state-of-the-art kennels, they receive rehabilitation and care suitable for heroes, because that's what they are. Be a part of giving them a future today. Visit warriordogfoundation.org.